And that guy was like, so what do you want? And he pulls out a prescription pad. I can get you this. I can get you that. And I'm like, what?
Like a
I'm
menu.
like, dude, you're the guy in charge. I just had a horrible experience. I'm worried about side effects. He goes, side effects, Carl, come on. Everything's got a side effect, but everything I'll give you is going to outweigh the bad effect. It'll help you more than it'll hurt you. I'm like, I don't like this answer. And he was the one who gave me all the gabapentin. And I went to my regular doctor and double checked with him. And he was the one who goes, no, don't touch that. Mm-hmm. And he put me on the sleep pill, which was slightly better. But yeah, it was just terrible. I mean, it's just like, oh yeah, what would you like? Like like I'm in a restaurant.
Yeah. It's bonkers. And benzos. You kicked some Klonopin.
Yeah,
Were there any,
but it was only 0.5 milligrams. But I mean, I didn't have physical side effects, but I had total, full-on, insane waves of anxiety for like 72 hours. I slept 1 hour. Yeah. I don't know how I made it to work.
Yeah, coming off of like Xanax is some of the worst withdrawals there is.
Could kill you.
Yes.
You mean like physical, like throwing up or something else?
I mean, it kills you.
Wow. I don't know. I didn't vomit or anything, but it was just nonstop fear.
So sort of like the Trump presidency, but chemically induced.
Yeah, they're some of the most deadly withdrawals. Opiate withdrawals rarely kill you. They're agonizing, and you might want to die.
Right. Wow.
But they don't kill you like benzo withdrawals do. Alcohol.
So what does benzo do that kills you? Is it?
I couldn't tell you exactly what happens biologically, but I know that they're a killer.
So maybe those waves of anxiety are actually tied in with like heart racing or something like that too. Or something?
I mean, that's another question for a doctor.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. But
what do you think? And this is, I guess, sort of a relatively new but controversial solution to the epidemic is like the government, like the observed safe places to shoot up. You know what I mean? Like on the street. Like I think it's working in Europe and Scandinavia, Holland, I think. But I think San Francisco just kind of like voted down like a citywide resolution to set some up where you can shoot up safely, basically.
San Francisco is going to implement something like that?
Yeah.
You mean shoot up safely as in giving you the clean needles, or just cops aren't going to look at you?
Yeah, they provide the needles in a safe place.
Okay, right. Gotcha.
Well, look, there's examples of policies like this actually working in Europe. I like the idea of them, especially if they're accompanied with treatment and maybe checking in with a sort of like a social worker, somebody like that. Yeah. But a lot of people will look at it as sort of like enabling, and they make good arguments.
For sure.
But when I was a junkie, I was going to shoot up.
Yeah.
For sure. The consequences weren't enough to get me to stop shooting up. That required something else that dirty needles aren't going to stop. So, yeah, believe it or not, I'm actually not opposed to that.
I can see both sides.
Sort of favor it.
I think we could all be in favor of like amnesty for overdoses.
Well, treating drug addiction as a disease rather than Well, but I think part of the problem with having safe, clean shooting galleries, for lack of a better term, in America versus in Europe is I think one of the reasons they work in Europe is because to back that up, they also have socialized medicine. Mm-hmm. So it's the thing of while the country is providing medical care, the city is providing a safe environment, for feeding your...
They have socialized medicine, and they don't have this entrenched cowboy hee-haw attitude of being tough on crime, which we have very much here.
That's what I mean.
In the U.S.
So many people die unnecessarily from, like, not taking a friend who's overdosed to the hospital. It's like, well, legal repercussions and stuff. It's like, yeah, but they're going to die.
Right. And a lot of people will like to say, the treat it as an illness instead of a crime sort of attitude is being soft on drugs. Treatment isn't easy. Getting clean isn't easy. No. Recovery isn't easy, especially early recovery if you do it right. There's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a lot of reckoning that you have to do with yourself. There's a lot of amends that you have to make. There's a lot of big, sweeping, difficult, challenging changes you have to make. It is a ton of work. It is not easy.
And it's an ongoing process. It's it's why people aren't recovered drug addicts. They are recovering. It is recovering. You are
exactly
constantly doing.
I'm catching myself with old addict behavior all the time. Now I'm a lot better than I was, especially in terms of honesty and being deceptive and sneaky and things like that. But I'm still in a lot of ways certainly not a dry drunk or anything. I work a pretty good program, not the strictest in the world, but I absolutely am still working on myself and still have a lot of work to do, for sure. And, a lot of that is the addict behavior. Absolutely. But that's work that I wouldn't have the chance to do if I were locked up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then, since we've been dealing with such heavy stuff and I'm part of that problem, what's an example of something
First step is funny? Admitting that you're the problem.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Okay. What's an example of something that would be a funny story you would use in your act from dealing with this stuff?
Well, I think they're funny and heavy. If that's...
Okay.
Okay, one of the first guys, he actually volunteered to sponsor me. We'll call him Merv. And he had one eye.
Good start.
With no eye patch.
Oh, Lord, no. That's irresponsible.
Very, very inconsiderate. And he introduced himself. He's like, well, you probably noticed that I only have one eye.
Oh, really?
And I was like, yeah, now that you mention it. And he's like, well, I'll tell you what happened. I actually sold my glass eye to my drug dealer, or I traded it to him for a bag of meth. And I was like, all right. And when I went back to get it the next day, when I realized the mistake I made, it was too late because he had already drilled a hole in it and he was wearing it as a necklace.
Amazing. Oh, wow. Wow.
And I just thought that was really funny because in the program they say if you want what we have and you're willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you're ready to take the first step towards recovery. And I'm like, nah, I don't want what you have, Murph. At all.
If I had a dime.
Yeah. But congrats to you.
This is kind of making me have an anxiety attack just hearing it. And,
oh, shit.
Thank God I don't have any pills left.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh, my God. That's
I got
horrible.
a guy. Wait.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Yeah. Well, the other thing was, I can't remember. Did you answer the question of? And if you did, just say so. And I'm an idiot. How do you know where to draw the line and what you're talking about?
Honestly, I don't really until if it's like a new bit until I try it out and work it out. There's still plenty of times where I think something is good and it'll bomb or it'll just get too much kind of scowls or groans. And, if that's the case, even if I think it's great, I have to give it up because I don't want to just go up and make people groan and uncomfortable and eat shit.
Can you give an example of something that did that, if you don't mind? If you really would rather not, that's fine.
No, let me... okay.
Relive the awful moment.
Here's one. I go, I shared needles a ton. Thank God I never contracted HIV.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I did, though, because at least then I would have a 5-year plan.
People live a lot longer than that now, but anyway, yeah.
That's my time, folks.
It's good, right?
No, that's great.
But it always died.
Yeah.
People just like, oh. It wasn't even moans like, oh. It was like this, oh.
Poor son of a bitch.
Yeah, like sad.
I think I was one of those people, but at least you got David going.
I'm dark if you hadn't figured that out.
Oh, my God.
And then there was one I loved that I was trying out. And it still kind of does okay, but it's like when I was getting clean, I had to work on honesty, and I may have overcompensated and become too honest. So sometimes somebody would be like, hey, what's with the scars on your arm? I could just be like, oh, these are from when I was shooting heroin. But I have to be like, oh, well, this is from when I was shooting up 10 times a day, and I tore big-ass holes in my arm.
Oh, my God, Jesus.
And I got them because I had to cut myself open with an X-Acto knife and let all of the pus and infected blood drain out. And then I had to cover the open wound with a maxi pad.
Oh, wow.
And now I got this mortified 7-year-old standing in front of me.
Somebody give me some gabapentin right now. Anybody got a Klonopin? No, so...
Man, now I just want to go home and watch Requiem for a Dream for all the funny parts.
I just want to go call my mom.
So, I don't want to see it. I really, really don't, but do you still have scars?
Yes.
Bad? Like, noticeable?
I've done everything I can to get rid of them, but the problem is they're, like, indented.
What about tattooing?
No, I'm not really.
He's not a big needle guy.
Not a big needle guy.
Scared of needles.
Hello.
Yeah. But not on the inside of my elbows.
Did you do between your toes, too?
Yeah.
Jeez,
I did.
heads, fingers, knees, and toes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Because it has to be said at least once on the show. Man, that's awful.
I know, I got to get the damn bell back. We used to have a bell the first few episodes. Every time we said that was awful, we'd ring the bell and we'd give $1 to charity.
But as the guy who does the sound editing, no, we don't need to bring, as the guy who does the sound editing on the show, we don't need to ring the bell back.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, we can. I'll work with it.
It wasn't until you cut it out. Doesn't make it...
No, it's just, tough.
Okay.
It's fine.
Well, so, all right, well, let's switch over to something also awful. No, kidding.
Okay.
I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry. Okay. About Mormonism, there's plenty of things to knock Catholics for, so whatever. But yeah, so, or actually, I forgot, Kevin had asked, what was the moment that made you hit bottom and sober up? It's a hell of a story you told me, but tell our listeners.
I can. You want me to tell the bottom story? Well, it was.
If you don't mind, yeah, sure.
Sure. I was at my parents' house for my grandma's birthday, and I was just on my way back from buying some heroin, and that was
grandma or
yeah, and that was the last memory I have of that day. The way my dad tells the story is he called for me and I didn't come upstairs, and he went downstairs and tried to open the bathroom door, or it was. It didn't open because I had pulled the drawer out to keep anybody from coming in. And he just looked through the crack and saw me laying on the ground not responding, and kicked it open, busted the drawer into splinters, and I was not responding, cold. I don't know, not. And he called an ambulance, and they gave me a shot of Narcan in the ambulance, which is it's a drug made to bring people back from opiate overdoses.
Is it sort of like in Pulp Fiction, the
adrenaline,
but
the adrenaline. No, it wasn't. It was a shot, but I didn't come back.
Okay.
Like that. I don't have any memory of it.
Okay, got it.
I think that was more for like, hey, look at this cool movie.
Which
purposes. It was a good one. Then I have like very sort of vague, flashing memories of actually being in the ICU. At the beginning, the doctors had to like strap me down, and I lost vision in my right eye because my system just fucking was shot. I was, shooting up with heroin 10 times a day. I was an addict for years and years, and now I got this shot of stuff that just wipes it all out of my system. So,
oh wow, really?
Yeah, it just gives you this crazy jolt, and my system like had a really hard time processing it. So they had to keep me in the ICU for about a week because my pH levels were like 10 times higher than they should have been. My blood pressure was fluctuating anywhere from maybe like 120 over 80, and then an hour later it would be like 180 over 130, something bonkers. And then my family actually finally intervened in the hospital, and that was the first time like my dad didn't yell and scream at me, and just he was crying, and he just told me that I'm done being mad at you. I'm done being mad at you, and I just want to figure out what's going on and work on this with you and learn about it.
Did they have no idea leading up to that?
They knew.
Yeah,
they know.
That's one of the things about heroin, from my experience, is that people think they're fooling everybody.
I mean, they knew, but they couldn't prove it. And I was an extremely good manipulator. So I got my parents in a spot where they were afraid to call me out on it. Because I was so good at twisting things around and gaslighting them. Gaslighting is a term that's been stolen from drug addicts by like douchey guys who treat women poorly. And drug addicts want that term back. We wrote the book on gaslighting. All right? These bro guys don't...
it makes you lie to the people you love the most, like right to their faces.
And lie really well.
Yeah.
And when I woke up, though, all I could think about was I want to go get heroin again, even after they told me what happened. And the dealer who gave it to me probably gave me a hot shot, which is a term for some bad dope that is meant to make me go away, because I had been ripping him off. I owed him a lot of money.
Wow.
But I didn't care. I actually was looking for my phone to see if I could call him to come to the hospital.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's why they talked me into transporting me directly from the hospital to treatment, not to stop off anywhere because they knew I had dope stashed everywhere.
Like Hannibal Lecter on a dolly.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
But I would say that was the bottom, and that was October 20th, 2009.
Reminds me of that whole Kickstart My Heart song and what the story behind that, about that with Motley Crue.
Motley Crue.
Why don't you sing the whole thing for us, Carl?
Dave, would you please pull it up? Well, Nikki Sixx, died, he claims, and had floating above his body and came soaring back in when they